So remember that question I asked you at the beginning of last week? Suppose you own a barbecue sandwich place and a friend of yours tells you that you should increase the price because elasticity for your sandwiches is inelastic in your area. And remember that at that time we said that we need to know the market structure in order to answer. Well, I'm going to pose you the same question. I'm going to give you the type of market structure. So suppose you actually own a barbecue sandwich place, but the barbecue sandwich you sell is actually not something no one else has been able to emulate. So you have to use it's a special barbecue sandwich. Now a friend of yours comes and tells you that you should increase the price because the elasticity for your sandwich is inelastic in your area. Should you increase the price? Well, in that case, the market structure makes a huge difference because if you are the only game in town, you actually will be able to increase revenue by increasing the price because you are it, right? So the elasticity in your area is your elasticity of demand. So this kind of introduces us to the idea of market structure and how critical market structure is, what the type of industry that you work, that you have your business, is for whether you have control over the price. And pricing is a critical issue here, although there are other issues. So this is the one I'm going to focus on this week. We're going to talk about market structures in which the business has some degree of market power, and that means they have some degree of control over the price. The first part of the lesson, I want to describe the specific characteristics of the different type of market structures that we're going to be talking about this week. And we're going to be talking about mainly three market structures that have some market power, with degrees of different market power. The first one is monopoly, when there's one extreme. And then we have kind of the middle ground with oligopoly. And then we have another one called monopolistic competition. They're all the same in the fact that they have some degree of market power, and that means that they can actually control the price. They have pricing power. But they are different in the degree of pricing power they have and market power they have. So I want to spend a few minutes at the beginning of the week explaining you the main characteristics of them. Let's start with monopoly. Now, in order to classify them, I think the best question you can ask, and we started with this last week, is how many sellers are there in the industry? And two, is the product they sell differentiated? In other words, are they selling something special, like the barbecue sandwich no one else can make, or they're selling something everywhere, very the same as someone else, corn or stocks in the trading market and so forth. So for monopoly, when you ask how many sellers, we say that a monopoly is a situation in which you have one seller, only one, and that seller is the game in town, and that seller is selling a unique good. So examples of that are many, surprisingly enough, right? There's actually many examples of that, and in the second session we talk about some of the reasons why that will be. But some examples of that are close to your public utilities. Public utilities are usually controlled by monopolies, right? There's usually one water company in an area or one electric utility in an area. So those things are usually controlled by monopolies. There's one seller, and the seller is selling a unique thing: electricity, phone service, water service, and so forth. Now, another type of market structure is one in which you have a few sellers, not one, not many, but just a few, and the product could be either differentiated or not, but is somewhat differentiated. And we call that an oligopoly. And again, this is it's very sketchy now to define what really is. When you only have one and you're saying just have a few, it's kind of different to say what is a classic oligopoly. But there's some ones that economists like to use, and some others are airlines, the market for airlines, when you have one or two or three in a particular area. But also oil, where you have perhaps a number amount of countries that can actually produce oil, and they actually form what we call a cartel, which I'll talk a little bit about when we talk about oligopoly, but those are considered kind of like classic oligopolies. And then we have finally the type of market structure that I think is the one most closer to you, which is called monopolistic competition. And there's when you have many sellers with a somewhat differentiated product. And the degree of differentiation is going to determine how much market power they have. Examples of monopolistic competition are most of the things you buy in stores: retail, phones, TVs, clothing, some type of food, coffee. So all those things, restaurants serving a particular thing, barbecue sandwiches is actually a very good example of monopolistic competition. In fact, this is the type of market structure Mike, the owner of the restaurant, think he is. So let's hear what we had to say, and then we'll come back and close this session.
No, I don't feel like I have to be either lower or higher than anybody. It's just, I think what works for the price that works for us is what works well. I don't think, right now, I don't think there's anybody that does what we do exactly. I think we are a barbecue place, but we also have a little bit of a twist in that we also sell a lot of the craft beer, and we do a lot of things a little bit differently. Our barbecue, I think, is distinct among the other barbecue places. I think we offer some things that they don't. You know, table service being one of them, and so I think we have some room to move on that. And people seem to come out, and I think we're not trying to gouge anybody, but we're trying to make sure that we get a fair return on our investment.
So as you can see, Mike thinks that he works in a kind of a monopolistic competition type of situation. We can't really say that he has a monopoly because, I mean, there's other restaurants in the area. In fact, other restaurants in the area are also selling barbecue sandwiches. But he feels that he actually provides a special type of sandwich. Not only the sandwich itself is different, but also the ambience and the type of environment that he provides to the customers. So he works in a situation in which he obviously, as he said, has some control over the price. But it's not because he has a monopoly. It's really because there's many businesses selling the same thing, but what they're selling is somewhat differentiated. Okay, so we're going to gravitate between these three market structures. There are some things that are special for monopoly, special for oligopoly, and special for monopolistic competition. And we're going to focus on those special things at the end, particularly in the effect that each of those have for society. But we're going to focus first on the things they have in common, which is the fact that they can price. And that means that they face a downward sloping demand curve. Now, before we do that, I want to spend a little bit of time telling you where the source of the market power comes from for those companies that have market power. So we'll do that in the next section, and then we get more into the details of how they price.
Produced by OCE Atlas Digital Media at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign.